Cases with twists so unbelievable, they seem fake. Intro. What would you do if your teenage son, who disappeared 3 years ago, suddenly called you from thousands of miles away? You'd be overjoyed, right? But what if, when he finally came home, his eyes were a different color? And what if you found out that the woman you knew as a loving wife and mother was actually a little girl who was kidnapped 2 decades earlier by the very man she called her husband? These aren't plots from some Hollywood movie. They're 2 of the most unbelievable true stories I've ever come across, with twists so bizarre, they'll make you question everything. Let's get into it. Section 1. The Girl in the Picture. Our first story kicks off in April 1990 on the side of a highway in Oklahoma City. A young woman is found, barely conscious, with severe injuries. She's rushed to the hospital, but 5 days later, she dies. The authorities rule it a hit and run. Her husband, a much older man named Clarence Hughes, identifies her as his 20-year-old wife, Tanya. He tells a heartbreaking story of a young, free-spirited woman and loving mother to their little boy, Michael. But even from the start, something feels off. Friends describe Clarence as controlling and possessive, and Tanya, she seemed to live in fear of him. Officially, it was a hit and run, but those who knew them wondered if it was really an accident. The case might have just ended there, another tragic file in a police station cabinet. But 4 years later, in September 1994, the story takes a terrifying turn. At an elementary school in Choctaw, Oklahoma, a man walks into the principal's office, pulls out a gun, and kidnaps the principal and a 6-year-old boy. That boy was Michael Hughes, Tanya's son. The man was his father, Clarence. He forces the principal into a truck, drives to a remote area, and ties him to a tree before vanishing with Michael. The principal is found alive, sparking a massive FBI manhunt. The kidnapping makes national news. And as investigators start digging into Clarence Hughes, the whole story starts to unravel. They quickly find out that Clarence Hughes isn't his real name. He's Franklin Delano Floyd, a career criminal with a rap sheet a mile long, who'd been a fugitive for nearly 2 decades. Floyd is eventually captured in Kentucky, but little Michael is gone. As the FBI digs into Floyd's past, they also question the identity of the woman he called his wife, Tanya Hughes. They discovered that before she was Tanya, she was known as Sharon Marshall, and as Sharon, she had lived a life that was remarkably normal on the surface and deeply disturbing underneath. To her high school friends, Sharon Marshall was brilliant and full of life. She was an honors student who dreamed of becoming an aerospace engineer and even earned a full scholarship to Georgia Tech. But a shadow always hung over her. Her father, Warren Marshall, who was of course Franklin Floyd under another alias. He was disturbingly overprotective, and their relationship struck everyone as bizarre. He forbade her from going to college, shattering her dreams. Instead, she became pregnant and was forced to work as a dancer to support Floyd. Led by investigative journalist Matt Birkbeck, the FBI traced Sharon's life backward through a trail of lies. Finally, they uncovered the horrifying truth. Her real name wasn't Sharon Marshall or Tanya Hughes. She was Suzanne Marie Savakis. In the mid-1970s, Suzanne's mother, Sandy, was a single mom struggling to raise 4 kids. She briefly married Floyd. When Sandy was sentenced to 30 days in jail for writing a bad check, she left her children in Floyd's care. When she got out, they were all gone. Floyd had taken the children, eventually dropping 2 of her daughters at an orphanage where she found them. He abandoned her son, Philip, who was adopted and only learned his identity in 2019 through a DNA test, but Suzanne he kept. For the next 20 years, Franklin Floyd raised Suzanne as his daughter, subjecting her to unimaginable abuse. When she was a teenager, he forced her to marry him. The man she knew as her father became her husband. The man who was supposed to protect her was her captor, abuser, and almost certainly her murderer. While in custody, police linked Floyd to another cold case. In 1989, the body of Cheryl Comesso, a co-worker of Suzanne's, was found. Photos discovered in a truck traced to Floyd showed Cheryl badly beaten just before her death. In 2002, Floyd was convicted of her murder and sentenced to death. He died on death row in January 2023. But what about Michael, the little boy kidnapped from his school? For years, his fate was a mystery. Then, in 2013, Floyd finally confessed. He told the FBI he shot Michael twice in the back of the head the same day he abducted him. Michael's body has never been found. DNA tests proved Floyd was not his biological father. Franklin Delano Floyd was never formally charged with the murder of the woman he called his wife. He always maintained her death was an accident, but no one who knows the case believes him. He stole her as a child, stripped her of her identity, her dreams, and her freedom. He took her son, and in the end, he took her life. Suzanne Marie Savakis was a brilliant girl with a bright future, but she became the girl in the picture, a ghost in her own life story, erased by the monster who raised her. Transition. Stealing someone's entire identity is a terrifying thought, but sometimes the deception works the other way. It's not about stealing a person, but about stealing a place in a family with a hole torn into it, a family so desperate for hope they're willing to believe the unbelievable. Section 2. The Chameleon. Our second case takes us to San Antonio, Texas. On June 13, 1994, a 13-year-old boy named Nicholas Barclay vanished. Nicholas was a troubled kid with a juvenile record and a history of fighting with his mom. That afternoon, he'd been playing basketball and called home for a ride. His older brother told him his mom was sleeping and to walk the 1.5 miles home. Nicholas never made it. Police treated it as a runaway case, and for years the Barclay family was left with nothing but silence. Then, 3.5 years later, in October 1997, the phone rang. A youth shelter in Spain had found a boy. He was terrified and claimed he'd just escaped an international child trafficking ring. He said his name was Nicholas Barclay. For the Barclay family, it was a miracle they'd stopped praying for. Nicholas's sister Carrie immediately flew to Spain. When she arrived, the boy was withdrawn, but she was convinced it was her long-lost brother and brought him home to Texas. The family was overjoyed, but there were glaring red flags almost immediately. The boy that came back was not the boy that had left. Nicholas Barclay was a blond, blue-eyed kid from Texas. This teenager had dark brown eyes, dyed hair, and spoke with a thick French accent. How could a boy from Texas, gone for only 3 years, forget his own language? He blamed it on trauma. The family, desperate to believe, accepted it. They even accepted that his eye color had changed, a procedure he claimed his captors forced on him. He lived with the family for almost 5 months, but a local private investigator named Charlie Parker, hired by a TV crew, had a gut feeling something was deeply wrong. He compared old photos of Nicholas to the boy living with the family and noticed differences, especially in the ears. He knew he was looking at 2 different people. As Parker pressed the issue, the imposter's story crumbled. He finally confessed. His name was not Nicholas Barclay. It was Frédéric Bourdin, a 23-year-old French con artist who had a history of assuming the identities of missing children. He claimed to have used over 500 aliases. He was arrested and sentenced to 6 years in a U.S. prison. But this is where the story takes its final, darkest twist. According to Bourdin, he confessed because he started to believe the family knew he wasn't Nicholas. He developed a chilling theory. The family accepted him so easily because they knew the real Nicholas was dead. Bourdin claimed he feared that by stepping into Nicholas's life, he had stumbled onto a murder secret and that his own life might be in danger.
The FBI did investigate the family, particularly Nicholas's older brother, Jason, but no charges were ever filed. Jason died of a drug overdose in 1998, taking any potential secrets with him. The Barclay family has always maintained their innocence, saying their hope and grief blinded them to the obvious. So what really happened to Nicholas Barclay? Did he run away and meet a tragic end, or was there a darker secret in his own home? Frederick Bourdin was exposed as a liar, but his biggest lie might have accidentally uncovered a horrifying truth. To this day, Nicholas Barclay has never been found, and his case remains unsolved. Conclusion: a daughter that wasn't a daughter, and a son that wasn't a son. The stories of Suzanne Savakis and Nicholas Barclay are two of the most profoundly disturbing cases you'll ever encounter.